In this series, I'm doing a deep dive into color theory and how it pertains to pinstriping. I'm taking the things that I learned when I was in art school and that I taught as an art teacher, and I'm sharing those with you. So if you've ever wondered if the things taught in art school could help you out as a pinstriper, then keep watching this video. First off, I want to give a big thank you to everybody who supported Pinstriping Color Theory Deep Dive Part 1. Got a lot of great feedback from that and a lot of views. Really thankful for that. Had a couple of questions I hope to address in this video. So here we're going to build off of the knowledge that we gained from the last video. So if you haven't watched that video, I highly recommend that you go back and check it out first. All right, so in the last video, we talked about value and we created a value scale. And then we also created a piece, a pinstriping piece, using only black and white and gray, talking about values and how we can stack them to create depth. This time we're going to build upon value and we're going to talk about something called hue. I mentioned it a little bit in the last video. We're going to dive into what hue is, but we're also going to talk about the values of hues. With that in mind, I've got two projects for us this time. One of the questions that came up from people is how you deal with values whenever it comes to not using a black background, but to using a lighter color background. So we're going to do one project that's going to be on a white background. And then the other one we're going to do on here, we'll do a small panel. A good question to ask then would be, what the heck is hue? Hues, the way that I like to describe it is they're the things that we find on the color wheel. Roy G. Biv. I heard that first whenever I was I think 22, actually in art school. I think I was living under a rock that I didn't hear that before. But Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, blue, green, and violet. A little side note about hues, or what colors we find on the color wheel. When I went to school for art, painting and drawing, went to University of Southern Mississippi. The professors and stuff that I had there that taught color taught us it that way. When I left there, ended up going to Northern Arizona University for my degree in art education. I first started hearing people ask the question, what about indigo? And I don't know, that never really occurred to me. It wasn't anything I had thought of before. I kind of just accepted what was taught to me at USM. And when I went into teaching, I heard it more. Heard people say, oh, well, you can't teach Roy G. Biv without indigo. It's B-I-V on the Biv part. So I went through and studied. Again, remember, this series is a deep dive, right? I went deep diving into this, trying to figure out, okay, where's this come from? What's the history on it and all? Some of you guys might have heard of a guy called Isaac Newton. Most people have heard of Isaac Newton. We look at him as the guy who discovered gravity, right? You hear the story of the apple fell on his head and hey, gravity exists. He's also the guy who came up with the color wheel and the red, orange, yellow, blue, green, violet. It's not purple on there, it's violet. That's something I'd have kids and stuff argue with me about. But for this, we're going to call it violet. As we get through this series, I'll probably end up saying purple and stuff a lot because it's what we commonly know. The indigo part of it, I found whenever I went through and studied, there is some history with that. It comes in there. I don't use the word indigo whenever I teach this because it really doesn't fit that color wheel when you break it into sections and we start mixing colors. It was actually put in, from what I found, just to make the Roy G. Biv thing fit in with a song that was popular at the time. And I think we're talking like the 1600s. But in order to make it fit with that tune so that people could learn it and memorize it, they added the indigo part in so it would fit the rhyming pattern or whatever it is. Total side note, total deep dive thing. Let's kind of get away from that and start talking about how this pertains to us. So, baby steps. Before talking about that whole spectrum, all the colors and stuff that are there on the color wheel, let's talk about these three. These, red, yellow, and blue. They're known as the primary colors. With these three colors right here, and with white and black, theoretically, we should be able to make every single color that exists. I personally find that I've been doing this for a long time. I still have a hard time making a few colors. They're usually really bright colors, so I buy those out of the can. Kansas City teal, if you're using one shot, and something like dark magenta. I struggle to make a version of those that I like out of these plus white and black. We'll get into all that kind of stuff later. But for this video today, we're going to focus a little bit on these. Got to make a quick plug here for my website, jackflemingartistry.com. Put the address right here. Go check it out. I have t-shirts, I've got art prints, sometimes there's original art on there. I have a new print out right now. Pinstriping adds horsepower, front and back. Go check that one out. Any t-shirts and stuff that you guys buy helps pay me enough time to be able to make these videos, help support this channel. Do appreciate it. Back to what we're watching. So last time we made our, there we go, our value scale, and we talked about just a little bit how hues have values. If I turn this way and we look at it, or let's see, let's put this really close here. If I look at this, you can see black being the darkest that there is, or maybe my shirt being white, the lightest that there is. These kind of fall in here, right? You can see that this does not stand out as much against the black as this does, or especially as this does. That's because this is a darker value, kind of like black is. Move these out of the way. Kind of like black. Red, if we look at this, it stands out about as much as the grays do right there. And the yellow, it's not going to stand out as much as white, but if I move down, it stands out about as much as that. Blue, then, well, let's bring it in here to where it stands out on the color wheel. Not color wheel, value scale. You can kind of see they're a little bit equal. When I think of these colors, I think of red as a mid-tone, the middle part of my value scale, blue as a darker value, and yellow as being a lighter value. All right, so let's paint a color scale here that puts our values, or excuse me, our hues in order by value, and try to line them up where we can against the value scale so we can see really how dark that blue is, how dark the red is, and how light the yellow is. So I'm going to guess about where I think the yellow should be, and then I'll tape off a little square spot here so I can paint my paint in that. We'll peel this later and we'll check and see if we're right by turning the whole thing into black and white with a picture. We're going to do the same with the red and with the blue. While we do that, let's talk a little bit about the physics of color. I'm going to get kind of deep, but not super deep here. You've probably seen this Pink Floyd album cover. What it illustrates is white light coming in through the left of a prism and then coming out the other side where it's, I think the word is refracting. It's breaking those light waves up. We talked about those a little bit last time, into all their different wave frequencies or wavelengths. All right, so the other part of how this works actually works with our eyes or with our brains, and that is how we perceive color. The way I understand it after it was taught to me is basically our eyeballs have like a red, yellow, and blue receptor. We can receive those wavelengths of light, the red wavelength, the blue wavelength, the yellow wavelength. All those other colors that we see, oranges, violets, greens, browns, all that stuff is a mixture of those wavelengths. That's illustrated pretty well with this little drawing here. One of the other things that I think of with this is there used to be old movie projector cameras that would have like little different colored lights that would shoot, and it would actually mix those colors on the screen. Or you can even think of it kind of like screen printing. You can screen print one color over another color in transparent layers in order to make a different color, right? I can do yellow and blue, and I can make green like that. We could go a little bit deeper on the physics of color, but I think this is kind of sufficient to help us understand how color works. Enough to help us understand more whenever it comes to mixing colors and stuff. It's going to be a big thing, again, whenever it comes time to trying to match colors, and it's also a big deal whenever we're stacking colors in a design. There's some more parts of this that we'll get to too. about how much to use of a color versus how much to use of another color for balances. And that's where we'll get into something called color extension at some point. But for now, stick with the primary colors and hue, the value of hues. All right, so pull up my copy of this here, but black and white. If we look at this and that, we can see that our experiment was pretty darn close. My yellow probably should have been down a little bit farther. The red maybe a little bit farther, and the blue probably up just a little bit more. But overall, the values, we've got dark, middle, and light. In a future video, we will fill in what colors would go here according to values, and we'll talk about those and how to make those colors as well. Another little side note, as an official paint nerd, I really like books and stuff too. If you really like books on, art and stuff like that, there's a ton of great ones out there. I wanted to mention a few things. I keep doing this, putting everything to you guys upside down first. I've got Alan Johnson's book here on pinstriping, and he has a small section in here on color theory. It's just a few paragraphs, and he even says in here, you could spend an entire book talking about color theory and pinstriping. That's kind of what we're doing in these videos. I don't have time to write the book. I don't have the money to publish a book. I think it would be super interesting. I don't even know if there'd be that many people to sell it, but I can make a video. The other book that I wanted to mention, if you're really into color and stuff and you really want to do some more diving into it, this is an amazing book. Johannes Itten, The Art of Color. From what I remember on the history of the author of this, he taught at the Bauhaus. There's another great book we'll talk about later too that was his instructor's book on color and color theory. But this, to me, is kind of like the definitive book that I use on color theory. There's a whole lot of other things out there on this. It's a subject that artists, scientists, art professors and stuff have been talking about forever and still studying on. It's really fascinating stuff. But again, really good book. I'll even reference some pictures out of this later. But let's go ahead and get on to our next project. All right, I mentioned that we were going to do two projects in this video. The first one that we're going to do is going to be on this white background here, license plate. Create a pinstriping piece, and we're going to do it using only our primary colors. So colors are perceived a little bit different on a lighter background versus a darker background. This illustration from The Art of Color demonstrates that really well. The yellow pops like crazy on a black background, but on a white background, it's kind of subdued. And the opposite is true of blue. It's contrast. Contrast being when two things are opposites of each other or different from each other. Yellow is light, it's the opposite of a black background. Blue is dark, it's going to be the opposite of a white background. I hear pinstripers mention a rule that you should always use light colors on top or light colors last on a dark background and dark colors last on a light background. Let's not look at it as a rule regarding value. Let's look at it as a rule regarding contrast, because I can also use bright colors on a dull background, or I can use warm colors on a cool background and get the same sort of effect. Ever since I got it in my mind to create this piece, I've had in the back of my mind this painting by Pete Mondrian, Broadway Boogie Woogie. Lots of white, but then only the primary colors in it. And I kind of looked at it for inspiration in this because I told you guys a little bit before about color extension. If you notice, he uses a lot of yellow, a little bit less red, and a lot less blue. He's using less of the thing that has the highest contrast because it has the most power, I guess you could say, or draws our attention most in this situation because it has so much contrast. If I use too much blue, all we're going to look at is the blue in this painting, and I want us to see the yellow too. I don't want to drown it out. So this segment of the Pinstriping Color Theory Deep Dive is going a little bit longer than what I had originally planned on for it, so I'm going to save the second project and make a part B to this video, so this will be part A. If you like other videos that I've done, please check out one of the two that pop up here. If you're really interested in this and want to follow along, please hit the follow button and hit like so that, YouTube will put this out there a little bit more for other people. Thank you guys. Have a good one.